Good afternoon, all of our merry Marvelites. Welcome to another exciting, jam-packed, spoiler-filled edition of Marvel Movie Talk. I feel like I need to say that this week because we had somebody in the middle of the episode who's like, "Oh, I haven't seen any of the episodes of Wandavision yet." We're pretty much just talking Wandavision. So if you're not up to episode 4 yet, this is not the place for you. But I am Christian Bladt, joined as always by Michael Shirley, who continues to be in
this house.
in the Maximoff rumpus room is probably the proper terminology for the way that room looks. And
the birthing room. Should we say the birthing
that's true.
room?
It is the birthing room. Continuing clockwise, Eric Connor from the New York Film Academy. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Greetings from Eastview.
Yes, that's true. And I'm the Westview side of Burbank. And Jeff Williams, thank you, sir, for being with us.
Thank you as well. And I'm pumped to talk about the show. And I love the Eastview, Westview. I love I don't know what view I'm from over here.
It was very Springfield versus Shelbyville. You know, it was just like, I don't know. I'm from Eastview. Why would I know about that? So much to talk about. And I'll sort of give a little background for everybody right at the top here that Michael and I actually, we both watched it right when it premiered, and that's midnight my time and much later Michael's time. So we traded a lot of texts, and we have a lot of theories, and we have a huge disagreement about where the show is going. But I want to let you guys weigh in first, and I will start off with you, Jeff Williams. Just overall thoughts, some things that stand out, and then we'll break down the episode a little bit more specifically.
So I liked the episode. I thought it was cool. It definitely brought me back to what a Marvel movie would be like, but it almost kind of left me as a tease because right when we started sitting down, right when we see Vision and Wanda again, the music starts getting heavy or like louder and like, okay, we're about to get into it. No, it's the credits. So like we got all the precursor, the storytelling. We got to see a lot of Monica Rambeau's backstory, like Sword's backstory. It was cool, but like it was like anticipation, and we have to wait until next week.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of here's all the questions you had from the first 3 episodes. We'll show you a little bit more about what was going on. So we'll give background, but we don't really advance the story from where episode 3 ended. But I think in giving us the more information, it certainly gives us a fuller appreciation of what's going on. Eric, what did you think on the whole of this episode?
Yeah, I agree that you're right. It doesn't necessarily further anything. It doesn't go wider. It goes deeper. And also reminded me, I don't know how many of you guys were Lost fans, but there was a really great episode. They showed the back half of the plane.
The tailies?
Yeah, the other 20 whatever days.
Yeah.
And that's what this episode felt like, where all of a sudden it's like we're going to put a big pause button on, and now all of a sudden we're going to just fill out this picture. Which I thought was great. And I like that they made us wait a few episodes to get there. And then they surprised me by how much exposition they provided, you know. And by the way, also, I feel like Michael, you know, is like the Steph Curry of this room, just nailing like, oh, I think that's Darcy. Yep. Oh, I think that's Randall Park. Yep. And then I realized, though, IMDb spoiled that. IMDb put the casting in there of multiple episodes ahead of time.
Oh, I didn't look at that. I just thought about
Oh no, I know you did. No, trust me. The compliment's legit. I totally know that you figured it out. Because then when I saw it on IMDb, I almost felt like I was going to bring it up. I'm like, no, I'm not. That just feels like a cheat because Michael was able to use the power of his deduction. You know, his Sherlock Holmes circa 1970s. Jersey basement powers to all like really not so much of it. So hats off to you, Mr. Shirley.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that look, there is, you know, we knew that Monica Rambeau had been cast for the show. It depends on how closely you were paying attention to the leaks and the actual announcements in the ramp up to it. I knew Kat Dennings was on the show. I just didn't know at what point. But to Eric's point, the information we got here in part 4, I thought all of this would have been spread out over the next few weeks. Like we would have gotten all of these things, maybe even these exact scenes, but they might have cut back and forth. I think it probably works better. I'm assuming we're going to be back into WandaVision proper next week, the actual sitcom. Maybe we'll see a little bit outside, but I think it's probably better that we got it all at once. Michael, overall thoughts on the episode and standout moments for you?
I don't even know where to start. Like that, we get, like you said, we got so much. I, on the other hand, don't think that we got too much. We got to think about the fact that these are only 9 episodes. They're only 30 minutes. And the first 3 just really dragged ass. So I think that they knew they had to step it up. I have all kinds of conspiracy theories. I don't really even... I mean, one big thing I was talking with you about when I made you, like, let me live text
you, yes,
because you were like, I'm actually gonna watch this with my wife, and I was like, all right, well, I'll watch.
I am your wife.
I was like, well, yeah, my work.
It's almost like you read our texts, Eric.
I keep feeling like something is going to be tied in with the mutants with all of this. I think we're all expecting to see Rogue in Captain Marvel 2. Got to explain the mutants. We know that the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were kind of injected with this thing that maybe, I don't know, given what all Wanda's doing right now, which I was initially really angry about, and it just really upset me. I think they're doing like some kind of reverse M-Day type of thing, and we're going to see all these mutants activated with Wanda's powers. I mean, at first it made me really mad because I'm like, that's the opposite. And it's just kind of, I don't know, it seems to be the only way this is going to work. It, like, what else is she really good for? Like, in this MCU like timeline, I don't really know, other than like a Doctor Strange movie. Like Vision's gone. I don't know. I want to think this is a tide of mutants. I would be really excited for that. I've changed my mind. You know, you've got to, when you have all of this rich mythology and history, you've got to try to surprise and shock the people like me who, you know, read the comic books, you know, for like 30 years. So, you know, you don't want us to just know everything. But I don't know. I think that the Multiverse of Madness is going to be a little more different after watching that episode. I see maybe the Spider-Man people not being really that big of a part of the movie now. I don't know. There's no telling. I really don't know what more to say except that this episode just gave me like so many reasons to, you know, WandaGate or whatever.
Yeah, keep tuning in. You know, to your point about Wanda creating mutants, Daniel Drew had this comment. I'm hoping Monica got her powers from that exit blast. If you're familiar with the character of Monica Rambeau, she was originally introduced as one of the Captains Marvel, I guess would be the correct way to pluralize that. She was the Captain Marvel that existed when I first started reading comics. She was a member of the Avengers for a long time, and she's had some other names. Overall thought I wanted to also share from Daniel Drew. I was glad that one of his theories was correct. Everything was fab, but the star was Darcy. So happy to see her again. And that was one of the things that Michael and I were texting about, was just how great Kat Dennings was. And it was just nice to see her because obviously, you know, look, everybody in America, we were all huge Two Broke Girl fans, and it's been a while.
I've never seen an episode, so don't speak for me. I don't watch CBS.
I'm speaking in the way that I doubt any of us were.
Yeah, and also, Michael, I don't think Two Broke Girls is the thing that's going to turn you into a lover of TV.
Yeah, it's not gonna. Yeah, that's not what CBS is like.
Or women, or people working jobs to make money. It's not her finest moment. But I was happy to see her again.
No, but it was great to see her. I mean, it's been a while since you've seen her in what we assume is going to be a regular role, and she wasn't in the third Thor movie because obviously it wouldn't have made any sense. So it had really been a while since we'd seen her character, since we'd seen Darcy. So I thought it was great. And to have Randall Park as Jimmy Woo, you didn't change the character at all because you're like, oh, this is the Jimmy Woo from Ant-Man, because he's got like 4 very good jokes in here, and
Coulson
it's great
or whatever. To me,
it's also great to see that the online magic courses have paid off when he was able to show that off. So I thought it was great to see them, and obviously getting a little bit more background. I mean, the way the episode starts, there was a lot of people tweeting about. Our friend Zach Wilson mentioned that within the first 5 seconds, it was like, oh my God. So we get to see her blipping back after 5 years, which was such it's not something that we've had any reason to think about what had happened to the character. The last time we saw her, before we saw Geraldine, I'm using air quotes, she was still a little girl. So I thought that was a great way to just kind of put us right in the thick of it and just let us know where she's been at. And, it's been a few weeks. It's been like a month or so, give or take, because her boss says that it's been 3 weeks and she's the first one to come back. And, let's just assume it's a month, after everybody gets blipped back. So, this is pretty close to the end of Endgame. And I would say that puts it even before Spider-Man Far From Home. Jeff, when the episode starts for you, that we see that familiar, the reverse of, the Infinity War, everybody being snapped away. What were your thoughts as we saw the episode start, Jeff?
No, I agree with you on how visually stunning it was from the jump. I remember last night, I watched it at midnight as well. And I pressed play and I was just getting situated. Turned away and I turned back and I was like, wait, something just happened, because as soon as I looked, you could start to see her full face, and I was like, this is visually really cool. And I go back and I rewatched the franticness so many times trying to figure out if there's anyone in there, and I feel like their whole thing just set up with Easter eggs, and also it's a really world building, because I agree with Michael, I wasn't happy that this was a whole episode, but I feel like for 2 reasons that it was. One, it needed to world build for what's else outside of the world, outside of Endgame, because we don't really know that yet. We never really understood when WandaVision was having this. We kind of thought maybe this is back in the 60s. Maybe they just went back in time, but we see it's just 3 weeks after. So it's kind of helping out other episodes or other series, other episodes, other movies. And then another thing is we see the Secret Invasions kind of teaser. I don't know if you guys saw this on the board. They said, it scrolls when they're looking at who are the people in the neighborhood. So you start to tease other shows and other series that are coming up. So this was a lot of world building. But with that said, that means there's 5 episodes left, and we only seen maybe a couple seconds of what's left. We have Halloween scene. And then after that, everything is going to be new footage. So I'm excited for the last 4 episodes. Last 5 episodes.
There'll be 5. Yeah, so we have 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. We have 5 more episodes.
I think we're gonna have an 80s and 90s, because there is that thing with her having the hair.
Yeah, we've seen her hair. We've also seen Catherine Hahn in a very 80s outfit. And there seem to be some 90s. We might also get, don't forget about that great era, Eric, of television that is often forgot, the early 2000s. We can also I still love that idea.
I'm really upset. Oh, I want to just jump in and say I'm really upset they decided to not do, or they forgot to do that 70s show. They literally had the mom from that 70s show and didn't do the era. Maybe just a margarita or something, just pour in the alcohol. That's all I needed, and I would have loved it even more. So
think
I really
point,
hope we get
yeah.
more of her
Yeah,
character.
they had Deborah Jo Rupp is that actress's name, who was
Yes.
the mom.
I'm a huge,
yeah, yeah.
huge fan.
I mean,
Uh,
I think these shows that she's created in her mind are things she's like watched in like Sokovia. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's maybe like just random American television that she watched, and that's why we're getting these like tropes.
Yeah, well, Erica, as Jeff was saying, we are getting some world building for the world outside of Westview, and then we can start to have that factor into our theories. This idea that it's about when the series starts, it's somewhere around 3 weeks after Endgame. So then you start to ask questions. Well, what's Wanda's headspace like at that moment? And somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think she blipped away after Infinity War. I think she did blip away.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she pops back. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that all right. So I that makes it a little bit easier to understand even. So
Sure.
the idea she hasn't had time to process what
She's
happened
wrong.
to Vision.
Yeah.
She basically came back and was like, "Oh, I'm going to kill Thanos," and she would have if he didn't basically nuke his entire fleet to knock her down. So we can start to ask ourselves those questions, Eric. It seems it's entirely possible Wanda sort of created this on her own. I mean, there's still plenty of theories out there that there could be other, forces at work that have sort of done this to her. But once we kind of have this time frame in place and we start to think about the outside world, what are some of your thoughts, Eric, in terms of what's going on?
Well, it's funny. I was thinking about. I'm surprised we haven't brought up yet that famous episode of Twilight Zone. It's a Good Life, which they remade in the Twilight Zone movie, the episode Joe Dante directed, and that's where this kid can control everything. And in the original, it had Bill Mumy from Lost in Space and Cloris Leachman, who just obviously passed away the other day. Yeah. But the idea of like how dangerous is someone who can create their own reality if you're forced to live it too. And if you've never seen the episode or never seen the Twilight Zone movie, it is one of the scariest sketches. Especially, I saw that as a kid, and that idea of like, wouldn't it be cool to have everything you want, and then seeing like, oh, things could really go bad there. And I agree. They gave us so much information that I also thought would be spread out, but by doing so, yeah, it does say, well, we don't have the whole picture yet. We're going to get a little bit more. We're going to get, what else is at work here? It's all Wanda. And that great line where she goes, I have everything under control, but we realize like, okay, there has to be more because otherwise that's the end of the season. Although my buddy here did make a cameo.
He did.
I mean, you weren't thinking about him.
I did. And our friend Craig Robinson says, loving the added scene at the end with Vision looking so skeptical of everything, but hiding it from her. I mean, he's putting on the brave face. And yeah, we didn't get a lot of new Vision content in this episode. It was really just that. We got a little bit more of Wanda, where we got to see her basically toss Monica out of the house and out of whatever this simulation, whatever this world is. But Vision is remember, this is just basically a minute after the neighbors were warning him about Geraldine, and now she's gone. And, he definitely feels like there's something amiss here. And I think that Paul Bettany did a terrific job just showing it he really verbally didn't say anything, Right. It was just more like, he just had to have it on his face. And he's like, well, we're going to sit down and watch TV and listen to Voodoo Child Slate return. So I guess there's no reason to not smile.
Jimi Hendrix, who opened up for the Monkees, by the way. And I was like, okay, that cannot be why they played it.
That cannot be why they played it.
Like, remember when Darcy has that line, I don't know why they're doing this besides my entertainment.
Yeah.
And that moment where it's Jimi Hendrix, I'm like, well, they can't be doing it because he opened for them unless it's only about me. I don't think it is. It was such a game-changing song choice, and that they let it play over the end credits. I think like there was so much to that one song, to having Voodoo Child, that it's basically opening up so many possibilities for the next few episodes.
And momentary tangent, my mother went to one of those shows where Jimi Hendrix opened for the Monkees, and she and her friends could not wait for this guy who played the guitar with his feet to get off the stage so they could see Davy Jones. True story.
He didn't go over well.
No, he didn't.
They realized it's not the same audience.
Michael, it seems like you've got something.
I want you to read a comment. The comment under the last comment you just read.
I just updated it. Okay, so Craig. So you want this one? Maybe Vision's head or body was sent to her, and her reaction was this.
Yeah,
I mean that's true because his body could still exist. But here's the thing about that: it's Thanos ripped which one was it? The Mind Stone. We ripped it out of his head 5 years ago. So that body's been somewhere. I would assume at like the Avengers compound somewhere. They have Vision in a box, or maybe I guess it was in Wakanda. So I guess Shuri could have it and could have been.
There's another great comment with Daniel Drew said maybe we'll get Shuri bringing a Vision 2.0 by the end of the show. Yeah, and I would love to see, as much as I'm kind of ready for Paul Bettany to fly on out of this franchise, I would really like to see the all-white Vision. That's Spectre-looking, ghosty-looking Vision.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to mention was that, as Vision got more and more humanized in the comics, and they had an entire miniseries where Vision and Scarlet Witch had twins, they did a pretty interesting about face where they had him really lose all that humanity and even be less human than he was prior to that. And it's something that I believe I'm showing here from this is West Coast Avengers 45. I didn't bring up the right image, but you still see it. There's the search term of all of it, but it's that one right there. So that was something that I agree that I think if we got sort of that more robotic Vision, that could certainly be interesting because Wanda obviously would have a lot of trouble connecting with that. But I think I think that we're still a ways off from that. And I'm just going to throw in because this is what Eric was saying before. Ghost 8386, Anthony Fremont's daughter, Audrey, It's Still a Good Life, was creepier than her dad, in my honest opinion. And that's referring to the Twilight Zone. In any case, I think that there's really a lot to think about. And I mean, we also got all this background on Sword that I certainly wasn't expecting to get in this episode.
I'm glad that was cleared up for the viewers so everyone wasn't thinking they were the bad guy.
Yeah, because I mean, look, until this episode, we didn't know. I mean,
we did.
Well, but you could still have made the case. You know what I mean? Up until this episode, that you could still try to explain, well, here is why Sword would be the bad guy. But and then, these acronyms like SHIELD and Sword change so much. So I had to write down that it's the Sentient Weapon Observation Response Division. A lot of these things change over the years. So I thought that it was nice. We get a little bit of background. Unfortunately, her mother, whom we know from the Captain Marvel film, Maria Rambo, had passed away, but she was, really involved in building Sword. And there have been some questions about this in the chat. We can assume that really Sword was probably at least begun in motion right after the Captain Marvel movie, which I think was set about 1995. So, this is something that's been in the works for a long time. And the fact that the MCU has really dismantled SHIELD means that I think that there'll probably be a lot more focus on a Sword. So I think that.
Oh God! I hope we don't have Agents of Sword.
Oh, I mean, look, that script is on somebody's desk somewhere. Somebody wants to do that.
Yeah, it is on a desk somewhere.
Yeah, and it would be one of these Marvel Studios Disney Plus shows. So I mean, it's not at the top of my list. But what do you think, Jeff, about giving us? We were talking about the world building. You brought that up about getting just some of the stuff that isn't essential for the story, but I think it really helps us appreciate the situation and really getting to know Monica, whom, as I said, the last time we saw her before the series, she was still a little girl.
No, I really enjoyed it, and I feel like it's teasing stuff for this series. It's teasing stuff for other series, like I mentioned earlier. And the Tyler Hayford, this guy that becomes director now because he's the only one there. I feel like there's stuff suspicious about him. And the fact that when he finds out about the Wandavision, the television show, he's literally the first person to give me all the reports and run out of there. There's a lot of questions to be answered, to be asked, like who is he, what's going on with him, and we'll see.
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
No, I wanted to piggyback on the world building, because part of world building too is character, and I thought what was so great about that Jeff was hitting was like right at the beginning, Monica's going to be a really important character, potentially beyond this show.
Sure.
And so, like, for the fact that with one scene they did so much, the chaos of everyone blipping back, which I thought was incredible, because you don't think about how horrific that would be. Mm-hmm. They after years and years and years of peace, all of a sudden that happens, and they panicked as if everyone had disappeared again. It was pretty cool. But then how much we learn about her, how invested we get into her. So I thought they did a great job of not only just building the outside world, but really building Monica, who's going to be driving a lot of the narrative for this show and beyond.
I want to jump back to Maria Rambo. I saw a couple things that I thought was really cool. When her name was on the wall, it said Maria Rambo, and I thought that was really interesting. And something even more interesting, when they said how she died, that she died from cancer. And it kind of brings me back to this shirt I'm wearing, the cover of Marvel Divas #1, in which Maria Rambo and Black Cat, Firestar, and Hellcat all have this little team. And a big part of this story is the fact that Firestar's powers have given her breast cancer. And so it made me kind of wonder, I wonder if Maria's cancer might have something to do with being in space and fighting with Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I mean, it could have to do with being in space. It could certainly be exposure to some of the cosmic power that Carol had, in the 90s. Yeah,
not that old.
Yeah. No, I know. It's a great point. Yeah. So,
and I don't know. Like you were saying, thinking that she was going to be a bigger part of this universe. I think that's absolutely going to happen. I think she's going to take over the Captain Marvel mantle from Brie Larson, who I don't think is going to be in this franchise very long. I've been saying that almost
you have
since she
been.
started.
Yeah.
I don't have anything against her. I don't dislike her as Captain Marvel. I just think that she's going to move on soon. But I don't know. I was watching Monica's character and thinking, can we see her on the big screen? And by the end of the episode, I think so.
Yeah. No, I think that
good actress.
I think that they're prepared for her to, whether we see it happen in this series or not, she'll have the powers that she's known from the comics, probably not going by Captain Marvel because she's been so many other names, but we can certainly expect to see her, I would say, in Avengers movies down the road. But I think that's why it's great that we have these shows that they're dealing with these themes that are going to carry over into the movies, and we're getting to see the side characters, which look, that's got to be great for Randall Park and Kat Dennings. Is like it's like we're not making a Marvel movie right now, but you want to do this
better
show.
Than Two Broke Girls.
Exactly. And look, Randall Park had what, 6 years on Fresh Off the Boat, but that's over now. So I'm sure they're like, yeah, this is great. Whatever MCU stuff, should we go hang out with Falcon and Winter Soldier? Can we be Loki's friends? Whatever you want to do with us, that's fine.
And they definitely also helped, I think, with the transition from our first few episodes to this one, because in essence, you had two characters that were right out of a sitcom, literally and figuratively.
True.
And I think like you needed that, or else it would have been almost like too much of a whiplash between like the world building of the first few episodes and then all of a sudden pulling the curtain back. So it was smart to have them featured so prominently in this episode.
I wonder if they're gonna like tease stuff for their own, not their own movies, but like the movies they came from. Like, is she gonna tease stuff for Thor 4? Is she gonna tease stuff for the Quantumania? Like, those are the things I'm excited for because they're brought in so easily and like everything just made sense. What they're doing and they're brought in for a specific reason. I just assume that they're gonna tease bigger things for their movies.
Yeah, and I think it's also, as Eric was saying, to just sort of help us adjust to the very abrupt tonal shift for this episode. At least we had some familiar faces and characters we like.
Yeah.
They're also lighthearted characters, so you're able to ease into it, which I think that it definitely goes a long way, and and as Ghost 8386 points out, Dr. Darcy never did get her coffee, but she did get some cup of noodles, and I was very upset when I saw what happened to that cup of noodles.
I know that was the biggest tragedy of the whole episode was the noodles.
And in the chat, people were talking about how it made sense that we didn't get one of the commercials this episode, but because it wasn't set in there. But what I thought was interesting is that we did see Darcy seeing the commercial that we saw for that episode in question. So what that lends it to, and I'll ask you first, Michael, who do you think is packaging this as a sitcom? Is this all out of Wanda's head? Look, they reference it like, oh, someone's censoring what we're seeing. It could be Wanda. She maybe doesn't want people to see it. But is there someone else between Wanda and this simulation, whatever it is, and it being sort of broadcast as part of this radiation? What do you think? Do you think that there is someone else that's creating commercials and censoring out content that that shows the real world bleeding in? What do you think, Michael?
I doubt it has anything to do with it. But what I'd really like, and it got me thinking from a comment I saw last week, maybe like Mojo. But I still love the idea of Mojo. By the way, that would be really cool. I'm not really sure. I've seen people saying in the comments maybe Mephisto. Yeah, that's been a theory because of some of the dealings in comic books, and also how Mephisto would be the sort of right level of villain for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I mean, that sort of threat. I mean, the guy is essentially the devil, So yeah, I could see Mephisto being at work, and because of the idea that Mephisto wants there to be the children, and that's why we had that refrain. All about the children. And I'll bring Jeff and Eric into this. This is where Michael and I differ. I say when the show ends, Vision's still dead. The babies never happened because this is something that happens to Wanda in the comics. These are all figments of her imagination. I don't think these kids are real. I don't think Vision's really alive. But Michael, you have a different theory and something that you're hoping to see, right? I mean, the kids she never actually gave birth to the kids, in the comics. They were part of like a shattered stone or something that was scattered, and they didn't even know that was their mother or that they were even brothers, but I can see what you're saying, and it's probably more likely. Yeah. But I kind of want to see all of this just expand into mutants. Like, her kids are mutants. It would, the way you were, or someone in the chat, or one of you guys were saying how, I think it was in the chat, that maybe she got her powers when she was thrown out of the bubble.
Yeah, that idea that's how
maybe everything comes back from the bubble changed. I don't know. I want to see them exist. I think she probably would send them off. But that doesn't mean we can't see them very soon.
But and so you want them to be Speed and Wiccan, and
that's who they are. That's who they're supposed to be. I mean, we're always looking towards this new Avengers team or a young Avengers team. Both Speed and Wiccan were in it. Like other characters, like I think Shuri is Black Panther, like Ironheart, like. it just makes sense that we're gonna see them all grown up. I think they might age really quickly. That's what I'm hoping. I hope they grow up really quick. I don't know. I don't really care, but I want them. I want to keep them. I want the children. I'm just like Mephisto.
Mhm.
Right. I'll ask you the same question in a moment, Eric. Mephisto also has reality manipulation powers in the comics. Mephisto was able to create the realities Earth 7161. That's very specific. It's my favorite Van Halen album, Earth 7161. And Earth 71241 by creating a small alteration in the Earth 616 reality. Yeah, and Earth 616 is the linear, essentially the main Marvel Comics reality. Actually, let me bring this in by Kame Egan as well. I think Wanda is creating the commercials because she still harbors some bitterness toward Tony Stark and extreme hatred for Strucker and Hydra. Yeah, I mean, I agree that they seem to be like from fragments of her thoughts.
Yeah.
And so, Eric, as we sort of process all of this, what do you think in terms of what could be real? You know, so we've seen that Monica was able to go into and then come out of whatever's the other side of that energy field. But we still don't know the impact it had on her. She's not dead. She was able to talk, but she was able to say it's all Wanda, but we don't really know beyond that. So as you start to theorize what's going on, what do you think that we're likely to see over these next 5 episodes?
Well, I'm not sure about the next 5, but I do feel like that 5th episode is potentially going to be really heartbreaking. You know, I was thinking, did we talk about the end of Secret Wars? I'm talking the original Secret Wars from way back.
The one from 1985. I don't think we've talked about that in the context of this show. No.
But he loves to talk about it.
I do usually like to talk about it. It's true.
Well, the end of that, when things stuck around, and then he had this, he fell in love. He was alone on the planet. And then it turned out everything that he cared about was actually in his imagination. And it's over. And he just goes back to Earth, sort of defeated. I remember reading that as a kid. I'm like, oh God, like that's a heartbreaker, because he was truly in love with this woman that never really existed in the first place.
Yeah, and he was also able to go back and forth between King and Ben Grimm. So that was the main reason why he stayed there.
Yeah,
and that was why we had She-Hulk on the Fantastic Four for real world time. It was for a couple years. But yeah, and then as soon as he leaves what was called Battle World, it just basically ceased to exist because the Beyonder had no use for it. Yeah. But anyway, go ahead.
But when I was thinking like that along those lines, it's not so much even like, because I agree with you, Michael. I would like to see the kids actually grow up and exist in the Marvel universe. But it also feels like the way this is all going, it's going to end so tragically. Which is
a little, maybe, probably.
The idea that she basically got to let them all go. You know, that feels like it seems potentially to go in that direction. I'm not saying it will, but I'm feeling like dramatically that makes sense to me, that she's going to have to make that choice, or maybe Vision has to make that choice. Or whatever Vision is in this world.
I just had a thought. Maybe they're going to have to send her off to Doctor Strange, and he's going to be the one that fixes her madness. Maybe she creates this. Maybe this is the beginning of the multiverse.
Maybe the multiverse of madness is actually something that is created from her. I mean, I think that look, there's certainly something to be said for that. I wanted to bring in this question from Michael B. Question: Captain America was tasked to return the stones, all the stones, back to their timeline, but the Mind and Soul Stones he couldn't return because one, Vision had the Mind Stone and then he died, and Natasha, Black Widow, died for the Soul Stones. So, do we think that Cap kept them both, or if he didn't, what sort of does happen to those? You know, I mean, does he hang out with Peggy Carter for 75 years with these sort of, in a safety deposit box, or
he put them on eBay?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, come on, or I guess if he went back to the 40s, he just set up a table at a swap meet and he just never found the right taker for them. With Jeff popping back in, we sort of have this question about Captain America going back to return all the stones, but couldn't return the Mind and Soul Stones. I'll ask you first, Jeff. What do you think is a good theory for what Cap might have done? Do you think he hung on to them, or because you can't give it back to Vision. And obviously, Natasha Romanoff dies for the sake of the other one. What do you think about these stones that are really unaccounted for at this point in sort of the narrative of the MCU?
Yeah, I kind of forgot about the Mind Stone and the fact that Vision physically needs that in his head. So I honestly don't know where that's gonna happen, because I don't think that bothers Vision in this reality and Wanda, because it's all in her head. I think we might have to hear about this in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because that's more along the lines of what their storyline might have to deal with, and maybe that might be something that they deal with, as in like their villains are trying to find that. But I'm honestly not sure where that could last or where that could lead to, because yeah. But
Yeah.
I kind of want to. I don't know.
Go ahead. No. Well, I was just going to say, and obviously the Time Stone is the one that had to be returned to the Ancient One. That she was very apprehensive of giving it to Bruce Banner. But so the question is, does Cap also give her back these other two, because you feel like you can trust her, or it'll be there in the Sanctum Sanctorum because Doctor Strange will
know her?
No, he doesn't know her, but I think that he just knows because he would trust Stephen Strange. Maybe he trusts her. But sorry, I just wanted to throw that in. What were you going to say, Jeff?
No, just to go back on like my theory with the what's happening with Wanda and everything. I feel like, all right, what's happening with Wanda in the whole bubble and everything? I feel like Wanda is controlling it. She created this whole Wandavision, but she doesn't really know where the end is. Like, she doesn't know what end in sight, and she can't really control what, like, for the commercials. I think she wants, no, you guys can't see this. So what they're seeing is almost like a nightmare or just something in her head. But I don't think she sees an end in sight. So for the kids and for Vision, I think it's going to have to be Mephisto, or maybe not Dottie, but Agnes. I think it's going to be Agnes is going to be the one like, hey, you can create this thing if you want. You can make us all alive, because right now we're all dead. So I think she's going to be the one to like, hey, you can do these things to make Wanda stronger than who she is now, and kind of create the little kids, because I like Michael think that Wicco and Speed are going to be in the Young Avengers, and I feel like there's no point of even introducing them if they're not going to be built to the Young Avengers, because that's what they're building for almost every show. It seems like every show has kids that are going to be Avengers.
Yeah, it's something that they're all building towards, and obviously the ultimate goal of Wanda could be what anyone in show business is, to have enough episodes to get into a double run of syndication with 200 episodes, and really never have to work again. Maybe that's just what she wants. I did like sort of the very self-aware. We referenced, Darcy saying like, "Oh, I wonder if they're just doing this for my enjoyment," but also, the moment when she's like, "Oh, twins, what can I say? I'm invested." Just sort of like how everybody who's actually paying attention to the show getting involved. And one of the things that we learn, Michael, is we find out that the neighbors, everybody populating the town of Westview, they're real people, because they do the facial recognition, and they're like, oh, these are who these are, but they're obviously playing characters in the show. Do you think that these are people who just woke up and believed that they were new people, or does the exchange between Agnes and I guess his name is Hank, the other neighbor, the one who was slicing the wall with the do they kind of actually know that they're playing a part for some reason? How self-aware do you think that the other people who aren't Vision and Wanda, how self-aware do you think they are of what's happening around them?
I legitimately don't really have any clue what's going on with the townspeople. Initially, I thought that she had been taken or whatever, and someone was kind of like experimenting on her, keeping her in a dormant period because she's too dangerous. And I assumed they were people like that as well, the people with strange abilities, not necessarily mutants,
right?
But I don't know.
Well, as we sort of try to figure that out, and I'll ask you guys sort of the same thing. Dandrew points out one of the promos, we do see what seems to be the Mind Stone. So it could be something else in this TV world she made isn't really the stone, but she could actually have the Mind Stone, and she could have tried to recreate Vision. I thought that, Eric, I thought that was a great visual where we see her reaction, the way that she sees Vision with the Mind Stone taken out, and sort of the way that your figure looks. What do you think about sort of, as we're trying to figure out the existence of these stones that, at one point in the timeline, Thanos did ground them all to dust so that they couldn't be used again, but we know that they did exist because everybody went back in time and got them. That was the whole point of Endgame. What do you think about the status of the stones? And do you have a theory about the real people who are portraying the townspeople of Westview?
I think they're trapped. I mean, I think it is along the lines of that Twilight Zone episode where, the kid would take, in the movie version, the kid just took a family and just made them become his family. So I think in essence, she took over this town and basically said, all right, now it's it's my town, it's our town, you're staying here. And so I definitely think there is a sense of they're aware. And just some of them are better at hiding it. And I'm curious as does Wanda punish those who get too far out of line? We saw that with Geraldine, of course, but really if someone doesn't play the role, does she punish them? I showed my son Truman Show, which really, where I think we talked about that, where it's like Truman Show and this feel like they're first cousins.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, as far as the stones, I mean, gosh, that's when it's funny. I found myself, I have to freely admit, not thinking about the stones very much as I'm watching this. But it dawned on me, I don't know, something about the idea of thinking along the lines of even how Captain Marvel first got her powers in the MCU, the blast, and all of a sudden she got all that energy, and suddenly was it part Skrull or part Kree or part something. And I wonder if something happened when the stone was destroyed by her. Did she absorb some of that energy? Is part of it in her now, and thus gives her this most unusual power, or amplify the power she already had. That was one thing I was considering, and especially this idea early in this episode, the idea of things reforming. I kept thinking about that, throughout the episode. I don't know, the visual thematic of that image, the opening image of this episode, which was so striking. But something about that maybe when she destroyed the stone, maybe part of it went in her, but at the same time, then, as we know, our buddy Thanos came over and rewound it and undid it anyway. So that was where my mind was kind of resting with this.
Yeah, and Ghost8386 points out his name is not Hank, his name is Herb. So my apologies. I should take better notes, but I'm just enjoying the show too much.
You've let down an army of millions with that.
I've let down an army of Herbs is really what it comes down to. Jeff, exactly, an army of herbs. What do you think, Jeff, in terms of, there we see these other people, and could this be why Agnes is telling Herb, not Hank, don't tell Vision whatever he's trying to tell him? It's because we're all what? And Agnes is like, don't do it. Is it the Wrath of Wanda? Which again is my favorite Star Trek movie, The Wrath of Wanda. But what do you think is sort of basically behind everything here? Or is Wanda really just creating all of this for this fabricated version of Vision she's created? And is that why she's trying to maintain it? Is this really for the benefit of this Vision entity that she's somehow willed into existence?
I think Wanda is controlling it, but yet she doesn't, like I said earlier, she doesn't know to what extent. And then Agnes is also in there, because remember, if you guys look at the screen when they showed all the different neighbors and they had pictures with who they really are in real life, they didn't have anyone for Agnes, and then they didn't even have Dottie on the page. So we don't really know who they are. So Agnes can be anyone she wants, and she could probably know what's going on. And she tells Herb not to say anything. We don't know what Herb knows. And Herb might just know, yeah, we might be fake, or yeah, we're not like, this is not my real life. And he might remember, but he doesn't. I don't think he knows everything, because he's still a real person. Agnes is not. Dottie is not. And I agree that I think Monica's going to get her powers through flying out of that reality. But I also think that this might be the creation of maybe mutants in the fact that everybody in that neighborhood of 4,000 people might be infused with the Mind Stone at the end of this series, where she has to burst that bubble. Everybody might have some type of mutant gene in them, and then you start seeing kids that come out of this neighborhood that are Cyclops or anyone in the X-Men family.
Sure. No, I mean, that's interesting. Eric, I understand you have a hopefully fun and stupid question. So I always welcome those things. Yes.
Hopefully it's definitely one of the two. I don't know if it's
okay.
Both. All right. How long was the sword agent crawling through that pipe?
I got claustrophobic as soon as I saw him get down there. As soon as I saw it, I was like, nope, couldn't do it. And I was like, literally couldn't do it.
I watched it twice.
It was quick, though. It looked quick.
But the thing is, okay, he gets down there towards the beginning. Multiple episodes have played. Are they played the same day? Or is this a binge show? Meaning, is this Disney Plus's model of distribution and exhibition? Or is this, let's say, I don't know, Netflix? So we don't even know if those
or is it Nick at Night where it's 4 hours of the same reruns, I mean the Nick at Night model. It's a good question. And then also, interestingly enough, you saw that, I don't know exactly what he had on his belt, but you saw it basically turn into like a jump rope.
Yeah.
And so then that's making me wonder, is it not possible to bring any kind of weapon in there? Could it be that? And then it also begs the question, sort of what we get in the beginning of the episode is, we reference the police officers that have never heard of Westview, which is a great visual because there's a gigantic sign that says Westfield, New Jersey, right behind them, or Westfield, New Jersey is the real town, Westview, New Jersey. And then the idea that, nobody even remembers this guy who was in witness relocation for Agent Wu, so what exactly is going on with this force field? Is Wanda, done enough to make everybody forget about everybody who's in there? I don't have a good answer onto that, but I think that I think it's worth asking. And Craig says, has anyone asked where the Eastview cops came from and went to? My wife asked the same thing. You do hear them drive off. They do disappear. And that seems like one of those things that they added the sound effects in so that you could understand that they left. But we had the TV on quiet. It was late. I was busy texting with Michael. So, there was a lot.
I want you guys to do a dramatic reading of your text to each other.
God.
Maybe next episode.
Yeah, I think that we'd have to go with some selected highlights.
But you read each other's roles.
We would definitely reverse them. Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about this a few more minutes, obviously. But Daniel Drew, Dottie and Agnes definitely have reality bleed through, and in the promos, we see them seemingly remembering the real world. So that can be something that we can look forward to in the weeks ahead. And that's usually how I like to try to wind down these conversations with all of us. It can be what you hope to see, but also what you expect to see. We can just look at it one episode at a time. I'll ask you first, Jeff, episode 5, but feel free to kind of run with it where you think it's all going to go. But what do you think we're going to get next week for episode 5?
So I've seen a lot of different trailers and snippets online. So I don't know if this is episode 5 teaser, but they show Vision start to touch the border of this bubble. So I think that I kind of just going along with what I've thought. Vision is going to question Wanda. He's starting to figure out that things are happening. We see him fly up in the air and start looking at what is east or west view of whatever the city is. And I think he's going to question it. I don't think he's going to leave the bubble, but I think he's going to kind of get to a boiling point of, I need to know what's happening. And then Wanda's going to tell him, you're dead. This is all fake or whatever. And we need to fight for our freedom or fight for our family. And that's where it's going to end.
Right. I mean, it could be, this is the only way for us to exist. This is the only way for us to be happy. Michael, what do you expect for next week? But feel free to run with it beyond there.
I haven't seen any
Yeah.
Do they have season or episode
No,
5?
I think just there's existing trailers where there's lots of short little cuts,
Mhm.
like how
Yeah.
we've seen where it looks
With
like
them
they're
flying
sitting
in the
basically-
air. Too.
Yeah,
I've
but
seen
yeah,
that.
we see the Halloween sequence. We see what looks like, a replica of Roseanne's kitchen, which you and I, of course, have been very excited about since we ever saw the first trailer. But where do you think the focus is going to be next week? What?
Oh, we're going
what
to
are we?
the 80s.
What's that?
Going to the 80s.
We're definitely going to the 80s.
Yeah, I think we're going to the 80s.
I'm inclined to agree with you. Eric, what do you think we're going to get next week? What do you think the focus will be story-wise?
Yeah, because the 80s is really family sitcom central. There's the one who's with that comedian who may or may not be in jail for the rest of his life, whose name I shall not mention. But then there was like Family Ties, Silver Spoons. Yeah. So, 80s was it was a throwback. The 80s was like a throwback to the 60s on that end.
Yeah, I do hope our theme song next week is, 2 parts Growing Pains.
Yeah.
No, 2 parts Growing Pains, 1 part Who's the Boss, and a little dash of Different Strokes, I guess technically is the 70s. But, I want a little bit of those feelings for, what's really, if you think about it, it's just sort of the epic era of sitcom theme songs. And then, episode 6, we can deal with the Friends opening title sequence.
Not to mention catchphrases. That was a big thing in the 80s. But we're going to need
a Roseanne opening, but whatever.
Yeah, well,
a little more grounded, that one.
Well, there's no lyrics for the Roseanne theme.
Well, that's what I'm saying, a harmonica.
Yeah, just a little bit of harmonica. Let's see. Let's get a couple more in here before we wrap it up. Michael B., what if the people of Westview were guarding one of the stones and Wanda came to get it, but one of them uses the stone to stop her by putting her into this world? I like that theory. And then they got trapped too. That's a great theory. I think that's fun if that's what it is. Daniel Drew, I think we're gonna eventually get to a moment where Fake Vision will have to convince her to end this reality bubble and just let him go. I think they're just from a normal town. Yeah, I think these are just regular people who got caught up into it. That's how it seems, Daniel, but don't forget that stuff inside can leave the bubble. Kemi Egan, I think episode 5 is going to be a flashback to the 80s. Yep, with Vision in one instance questioning why things are the way they are. I think that we're all in agreement that there is going, and look, we could get something completely different. We could get a Miami Vice opening,
you remember those like shows from the 80s that didn't survive, like Manimal and Automan?
Sure.
That show, I think if they get even a touch of that, Knight Rider,
if they get cameos from other Avengers and it's the A-Team opening, I'm gonna watch it 5 times before I even get into the episode.
I will never sleep that night. I will just have that on repeat.
Because what if we have Sam Wilson saying that I'm not flying on no plane?
Drink this. No. Okay,
he's get hypnotized to fly on a plane. So yeah, there's so much we can see, and I think that there's a lot of excitement about this episode from when I saw people tweeting about it and sort of the reactions to it, because we're at least starting to get some of the pieces, and I think that next week we will definitely continue. Mostly in Westview. Maybe we'll have like a little bit afterwards, watching on the screen like we saw Darcy, which, as you pointed out at the beginning of the show, Eric, Michael was the first one to say, is like, I'm pretty sure that's Darcy watching that screen. I'm like, what? Why is that Darcy watching?
Little hand.
No, and you're right.
You recognize the wrist.
The hand that didn't have a cup of coffee in it. So clearly you were spot on there. Anyway, so we'll be back next week at the same time, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, to talk about episode 5. Until then, Jeff, where can people keep in touch with you?
At Jeff Will Jr. on all your social media platforms. And I'll also have a 60-minute recap, just a continuation of what we thought about this on my platform tomorrow. And
people just go to Jeff Will Jr. and they'll find a link to that. Great.
Yeah.
Eric, where can people keep in touch with you?
Well, Count Eric Connor is alive and well on Twitter and Instagram. And a documentary I produced is actually apparently going to be available on Amazon on Monday. It's called Other Voices. Totally different than this in every possible way. Not too much fun, but a good story about unlikely friendships forming across the Israel-Gaza border, which A little different than WandaVision, I suppose.
No,
So
but to be
deep,
fair,
man.
it's pretty much the same as the Eastview Westview border. I
Right.
think
Oh no,
probably-
the Eastview Westview. I mean, the Shelbyville, Springfield.
Shelbyville, Springfield. Yeah. Michael Shirley, where do people keep in touch with you?
You can find me on Instagram at I Hate Michael Shirley, and you can find me on Twitter at Michael X Shirley until Twitter adds characters.
Oh, well, I hope that's coming sometime soon. And I'm sorry, I can't ignore this comment from Ghosty. I hope we get a small wonder nod in WandaVision. I mean, if we have the robot girl, Vicky, honestly, get the actress who played her. Get the actress who played her. I mean, she's got to be like, what, in her 40s now? That'll be perfect. That's fine. I think that the 80s just opens up so many different possibilities. So I can't wait for all of that. And I can't wait to speak with all of you and everybody in the chat. We always appreciate everybody. You always give us so much more to think about between episodes. So it's much appreciated. If you want to keep in touch with me, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. And if you're watching on YouTube, you are watching on the Blackcast YouTube channel. So you can go ahead and just subscribe. BLADTCAST. That has the titular Blackcast podcast, but it also has a political show we do called Biden Time. And also we'll have some fun things coming up on the Blackcast YouTube channel. I'll be interviewing on Monday Mr. American Pie himself, not Jason Biggs, but Don McLean. So you can tune in for that if you're so inclined. You can go to blackcast.com for episodes of that show. Thank you so much to everyone. It's always so much fun to get a chance to talk about this show and everything else. Until next time, as the great Stan Lee would say, Excelsior!